Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be doing another update of Washington Dulles International Airport. Today's update is going to be a morning update, so we have a lot of the Asian and Middle Eastern airlines, and we have some changes to operations, and we also have some new model aircraft in today's update, so it's going to be a pretty good update. But starting off as we usually do over here at Concourse B, we don't have any Alaska aircraft today, as all of the Alaska aircraft now come into Dulles at the evening. We no longer get any of the red-eye Alaska flights as we used to do back in 2019 and basically pre-pandemic times. When I flew Alaska from Seattle to Washington Dulles, that was a red-eye flight on board the A320, which of course Alaska no longer have. But starting off here, we have this American Boeing 737-800. This aircraft is of course going to be heading out to Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas. We then have this American Eagle CRJ-700. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Charlotte in North Carolina. Of course, American Eagle used the CRJ-900 on this route, but of course I don't have the -900 variant of the CRJ, so we're using the CRJ-700 for this route. Next, moving around to Delta, here we have the Delta Boeing 717. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Detroit in Michigan. We then have the first appearance in an airport update of this Delta Embraer E175. Of course, this is a new model by Gemini Jets. Before this I had the E170, but of course the E175s fly a lot more out of Washington Dulles than the E170s. So finally here we have this Delta Connection Embraer E175. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Minneapolis in Minnesota. And then next up here we have this Delta 737-900ER heading out to Salt Lake City in Utah. Delta have a relatively sizable presence at Washington Dulles, not in terms of a hub presence or anything, but it's more than Alaska or American, so they have a pretty decent presence here. And the morning is when we get a lot of these. I mean, you can kind of call Salt Lake City West Coast. It's more towards the West Coast than the East Coast, but we get Salt Lake City and Seattle around this time. So this 737-900 is going to be heading out to Salt Lake City. And then finally here for Delta, we have this Delta Airbus A319. This is my new Delta A319 by NG Models, and this aircraft is of course going to be heading out to Atlanta in Georgia. Then next up here we have an airline that have changed operations quite drastically here at Washington Dulles. We have Southwest Airlines. Originally, as far back as I can remember, Southwest have had 3 original routes here at Washington Dulles. Those were Orlando, Atlanta, and Denver. We still have Denver. Atlanta and Orlando have now stopped operations, and then we gained Chicago Midway a couple years ago, but Chicago Midway has now stopped. Chicago Midway, that flight ended on March 6th, so it's only Denver operating. So this Southwest 737-800 in the Tennessee 1 color scheme is going to be heading out to Denver. But there is silver lining, as Southwest are starting a new destination here at Washington Dulles, and that is Phoenix Sky Harbor, which is quite a long flight from Washington Dulles, and that will be beginning on April 9th. So well, at the moment we've only got the one route for Southwest, which is of course Denver, but we will be gaining Phoenix pretty soon. Which is, I mean, it is exciting, but of course we have also lost Chicago Midway, Atlanta, and Orlando, which is a pretty heavy loss, but there we go. And then next up here, moving on to the international aircraft, here we have this Korean Air Boeing 777-300. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Seoul in South Korea. This aircraft is the non-ER version of the 777-300. Korean Air do still use these, but primarily around Asia. We are currently getting at Washington Dulles the 777-300ER. There is a difference in looks. The wings are a little bit of a different shape, but overall they don't look too dissimilar. So for now, I'm going to be using this 777-300, but hopefully we get a release of a 777-300ER. I do have the 787-9 in my collection. Korean Air over the pandemic started using the 787s to Washington Dulles, but they have now reverted to the 777-300ER. Then next up here we have this Egypt Air Boeing 787-9. This aircraft is of course going to be heading out to Cairo in Egypt. Egypt Air have been absolutely consistent when it comes to operating the 787-9 into Washington Dulles. There's not many other aircraft they can operate. They've got the 777, but apart from that, they don't have many aircraft that can operate this route. But of course, that makes it easier on me. From a collector's standpoint, I just have to collect this one 787-9 to operate out of this model airport update. So yeah, as I said, this 787-9 is going to be heading out to Cairo. And then an airline that is not consistent, we have this Ethiopian 787-9. Of course, this aircraft is going to be heading out to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia after arriving in from Dublin. Of course, on the way to Washington Dulles is similar to a lot of other North American routes. Ethiopians stop in Dublin. I believe that's due to the elevation that Addis Ababa is at above sea level. Of course, the higher you are above sea level, the longer the aircraft need to take off. So of course they can't carry as much fuel when departing Addis Ababa. So all the aircraft going from Addis Ababa to North America usually stop in Dublin on the way to refuel, and then arrive here in Washington Dulles, and then on the way back they can just fly direct from Washington Dulles straight back to Addis Ababa. So this 787-9 is of course going to be heading out to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Ethiopian use pretty much every wide-body they have, apart from, I haven't seen the A350 at Washington Dulles yet, but I've seen the 222s, the 333s, the 787-8 and the 787-9. Luckily I have the 787-8, the 787-9 and the 222 in my collection, so I just need the 333, and then maybe if they start operating it in the future, the A350, but for now I'm pretty happy with my Ethiopian Airlines collection. And then finally here for this side we have a brand new aircraft into my collection. This is the new livery Emirates Boeing 777-300ER. Emirates have started operating the 777s back into Washington Dulles after operating the A380 exclusively for years. They are going to resort back to the A380 later on this year, I believe, but for now we have the 777-300ERs here at Washington Dulles, which makes a change. It's pretty nice to see them, and of course in this new livery it looks pretty good. But this Emirates Boeing 777-300ER is of course going to be heading out to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And changing sides of the terminal now, here we have this ANA Boeing 777-300ER. I'm in a similar position with ANA as I am to Korean Air. ANA originally flew nothing but this aircraft, the 777-300ER, into Washington Dulles. But ever since the pandemic, they have flown the 787-9s into Washington Dulles. I do have an ANA 787-9, but it is in the Star Wars R2-D2 livery, so it's kind of unrealistic if I have the aircraft in every update. So hopefully we can get a regular livery 787-9 into my collection soon. But for now, I will either be using the R2-D2 livery or this Boeing 777, and this aircraft is of course going to be heading out to Tokyo in Japan. Next up, another airline that I'm struggling with, and this is Turkish. Turkish operate twice daily flights now, which is pretty cool, and this is the 787-9. Turkish had started operating the 777-300ER into Washington Dulles ever since 2019. So I finally, and I've just got this model, I finally got the Turkish 777-300ER into my collection. And now, would you believe it, just as I get that 777-300, Turkish start using the A350 instead. They do also operate this 787-9. They interchange the 787-9 with the A350-900. So, you know, it varies day to day whether you see this aircraft or the A350. That used to be between the 787-9 and the 777-300. But now that I have the 777-300, they now use the A350 in its place, which is very annoying. But hopefully I will get a Turkish A350 soon. And of course, by the time I get that, they're probably going to be using a different aircraft. But there we we go. This 787-9 is of course going to be heading out to Istanbul in Turkey. Next to that, we have another new model. This is the Air India Boeing 787-8. I am currently on track with my Air India aircraft. When Air India started to Washington Dulles, they were using the 777-300ER. I got the 777-300ER, and then they started using the 787-8, and I've just got this aircraft, and this is accurate as of now, but of course Air India have just unveiled their new livery as well. It's going to take some time before all of their aircraft are painted into the new livery, so I don't believe at the moment Air India have any 787s painted into their new livery, so at the time of recording this is accurate still, but of course when they get the new livery on all of their aircraft, I will buy that aircraft as well, so we can have a current Air India aircraft operating in these airport updates. But for now, this Air India Boeing 787-8 is going to be heading out to Delhi in India. And then next up here we have this Qatar Airbus A350-900 in the One World color scheme. Qatar operate twice daily, just like Turkish, into Washington Dulles, one in the morning and one in the evening. The evening seems to be the higher demanded flight, so we often get either the A350-900 or the A350-1000 in the morning, and then in the evening we tend to get either the 777-300ER or the A350-1000. It depends day to day, they keep on changing it, but for now we have this Qatar A350-900, which is going to be heading out to Doha in Qatar. And then finally here for the international aircraft, here we have this Copa Airlines Boeing 737-800. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Panama City in Panama. Then over here at the cargo stands, here we have this FedEx Boeing 757-200. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Indianapolis in Indiana. We then have this UPS Boeing 767-300. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Richmond in Virginia. Then here, just taxiing out to the runway, we have this United Express Embraer 175. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Cincinnati in Ohio. And then finally here, just departing, we have this United Boeing 737 MAX 9. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Fort Myers in Florida. And that does conclude today's update of Washington Dulles International Airport. I hope you enjoyed. There's not really a lot to go over at the end, so with that, I hope you enjoyed today's update, as I just said, and with that, I will see you in my next video. Bye.